Hi there, a warm welcome, and we are very excited and happy that you could make it to this second edition of our EHEDG Connects online webinar series that aims to connect food safety and food equipment experts from all around the globe with the rest of the EHEDG community. And before we go to Roger Scheffler, who is ready to start his presentation, I am delighted to introduce you to Christina Annoni. She works at the head office of EHEDG in Naarden in the Netherlands, and she will take care of all of your questions today in the Q&A session that follows the presentation of Mr. Scheffler. Over to Christina.
Hi everyone. Yes, I'm here to moderate all the questions that might have for Mr. Scheffler. So if during the presentation you want to type any questions, just use the question field. And then after Mr. Scheffler is done with his introduction, I can pose him those questions. But now I don't want to hold you up anymore. So please, Mr. Scheffler, the stage is yours.
Let's get started. I hope everybody can see me well this morning and hear me very well. So a very warm good morning, and thanks to Rob and Christina for this nice introduction, and special thanks to EHEDG, who gave me the opportunity and invited me to speak on a proactive approach to hygienic design on conveyors, a very, very important aspect. And I'm delighted you found the time this morning and dialed in, and I hope I can bring you some good information, useful, maybe some new information that you haven't heard. My name is Roger Scheffler, like you heard, and I'm working with Commercial Food Sanitation, an interlocks company, and my passion is on hygienic design based on my professional education, which is mechanical engineering, combined with the sanitation knowledge. And as you all know, hygienic design is the foundation for safe food production. So don't want to waste time. Let's start into the presentation. So this is our agenda for today. I would like to give a quick insight on a comparison about conveyor systems to our circulatory body system. And then I would like to highlight a bit on the evolution of conveyor systems within the last couple of centuries, and followed by some discussions on various industries and applications, followed by an example that we took out here for you in order to have highlighting some aspects on hygienic design and the importance of it in conveyors. And I would like to introduce you to some hygienic design features, improvements that may help you to improve your conveyor design in the future. Last but not least, we're gonna finish, and then I am more delighted to answer any questions that might appear. So I'm very much looking forward to this short and compact webinar, and let's go. So we all know that as we work in the food industry, more than 80% of the food processed runs over conveyor systems and conveyor belts. So we believe that the conveyor system is to a food processing plant is what the circulatory body system is to our human being. So arteries convey the blood to the organs, and without the arteries, the organs cannot work efficiently and effectively. So I would like to emphasize a bit on considering conveyor system as a whole system. So first, looking at the process equipment that we see in food processing. So for instance, raw dough mixers, or we have fryers or blanchers, freezers, bagging equipment. All of these equipment is to process food. And the conveyance system connects this equipment as the arteries connects the organs with blood. So that's why it is so critical for the overall performance in relation to transfers, reliability, and so on when connecting these processing machinery. And secondly is that the circulatory body system may leak blood, and within the conveyor system world, they may leak money. You may lose money when you're not running an optimized hygienic and operational performance system. So I think it's important to recognize of the conveyor system in a plant in order to reduce the food safety risk as well. And I would like to highlight some bottlenecks here. So, for instance, the improved system performance and lifetime can be a one. Reduced maintenance is the thing that is really important to look at. Elimination of tensioning and tracking, very important with conveyor system builds. Minimize downtime, and last but not least, improve cleaning access and effectiveness. So let's have a look at another industry. It's always good to look a bit abroad and make a step back into other industries, how they do it. So let's take a look at this car industry. Many of you may know the picture on the left, which is a Volkswagen Golf Edition 1. And on the right-hand picture, you see a Volkswagen Golf Edition 8. Not only from the visible aspect, you can already see that there is a huge difference between those. So, for instance, the Golf 1 had no airbags, no air condition, manual wind down windows, and no power steering, and no cruise control, and no parking assists, and so on and so on. No ABS, no child locks, even no seat belts. So when I was young, we even had no seat belts in the car. Unimaginable, right? So whereas the Golf 8 has everything you can imagine, from ABS to driveline, traction control, the side impact beams, dual stage driver and passenger, seat mounted airbags, and on-call plus emergency. So all these things, lane keeping assistance, etc., etc. So for the early cars, the expectation was just to drive from A to B, and in automated the process of transportation of human beings. And today, really any new car, everyone expects it to still do that, driving from A to B. But in addition, now we have standard expectations for safety, airbags, seat belts, etc., and comfort as well, air conditioned, seat warming, multimedia, keyless entry, engine starts, and so on. So, and that development has not come to an end with ongoing developments in, for example, more environmentally friendly alternatives to gasoline, and even newer developments like autonomous driving. So combining consumer demands and technology developments and an innovative industry has brought us a long way. And back to the conveyor system. So this is a kind of funny comparison, but it is true. Kind of similar evolution happened in the world of the conveyor systems. Maybe just not that obvious for the consumer, but it becomes very clearer when we zoom in on conveyors in the food industry. So the equipment is still designed to perform the same application, like transporting food from A to B, considering the microbial, allergen, chemical, or hygiene requirements that come with it. And new technology developments combined with consumer expectations have raised. So the bar for manufacturers and users of conveyors are higher and up the game. So three important aspects when looking at conveyors is, for instance, the change from tensioned friction-driven systems to positive-driven, called zero tension-driven systems, which allows to have way greater access for sanitation when you're using zero tension, including features for greater access, for higher sanitation efficiency and effectiveness, and we're going to look into a few of those in a few minutes, and hygienically designed base profiles, round instead of square, spacers instead of put directly together, creating niches, and so on. So here is where also EHEDG comes in and gives very good guidance on the essentials of hygienic design in food processing conveyors. So a nice tasty picture here. You can see the burger, and as we see conveyor systems in all food industries, and here on this picture actually is a nice combination. We may not always identify or acknowledge that, but with this burger you have the bakery industry for the bun, you have the fresh cut industry with salad, tomato, onions. You have the dairy industry with the cheese on it, and the meat industry for the patty. We can see here on the right, and on the left, the potato industry for the French fries. So there are different hygienic requirements from dry environment in bakery snack, mainly up to a wet environment with high hygiene areas in meat, poultry, or even seafood industries. So what I want to say is that every industry has its own dynamics, and it would take for sure weeks to cover all these different aspects. And therefore, we thought it would be a good idea to take one example out of those industries. And we thought the fresh cut industry is a nice example because it's a wet processing environment and hygienically important to look at. So let's dive a little bit into that. So principally spoken, conveyors in the fresh cut, or we also call it produce or salad manufacturing industry, are working in wet environment. And therefore, hygienic design is so crucial for the equipment in these areas. So niches and other design flaws may give product to harborage in those areas and bacteria to grow. And that is something that in the fresh cut industry can be critical, because we all know that, for instance, common microbial risks, common pathogenic bacteria are, for instance, Listeria or Salmonella or E. coli, and we don't want to have those in our machines growing. And last but not least, the right bottom picture here explains and outlines that. It's the wet sanitation procedures always requires a systematic approach using the 7 steps of sanitation. The SSOP, the Standard Sanitation Operating Procedure in that area, should be made based on the appropriate sequenced approach. We see that is one of the major aspects in the fresh cut industry, and we should not underestimate the importance of those aspects when it comes to conveyor systems. So to address those requirements, I wanted to give you some insights on possible conveyor features and solutions. So let's start with the hygienic belting. So the hygienic belting may cover various belting systems. So either it is a homogeneous belting that you can see here on the picture on the top left, or a hygienic modular belt, whereas I need to mention that hygienic modular belts are not as easy to clean as thermodry or homogeneous belting systems. However, I can say that everything is cleanable, but it takes more focus, better tools, more time, more cleaning, training to get those things clean. So depending on the application, you may select the appropriate belting system, from flat belts up to wire mesh belts. Everything is possible. There is no universal solution for every application available. Secondly, the hygienic conveyor components is important. So for instance, here, this wavy snake you can see here on the screen is an idle end, which is made out of one piece. Instead of using several sprockets that are put on a shaft, maybe a round or square shaft, creating niches, also using retainer rings that also makes things difficult to clean. This is a good alternative for idle ends, for conveyors, even for modular or for homogeneous belting, to use in order to have one piece of cleaning component available. The next one is an integrated belt lifter. So belt lifters should be, where possible, always considered to be an integrational part of the conveyor system, because it really helps to gain greater access for the sanitation crew to those conveyors. And without that, you can imagine that the belt in flat top version may be kind of covering the conveyor system so that you have no chance to get into it and you have only minimal access to it. So hygiene integrated belt lifters are an important and essential piece of a conveyor system. And then if a fixed belt lifter system is not possible to integrate, then a manual cleaning rack could be an alternative. The example I'm showing here is from a meat plant where people did not have integrated belt lifters in the original equipment, and they decided to put on this manual cleaning rack in order to gain access to this conveyor in order to get it better cleaned. So just an idea to throw in for you to consider when it's coming to gain a greater access for sanitation. And in the seafood industry, I saw this example of an liftable idle end, which also can be an interesting and nifty tool to lose the belt tension, and in order to have the sanitation crew giving more help and access to that conveyor. It may be also be used to go through the conveyor lines. So this feature is also, I think, a very interesting and a nice feature to put in. Or you may consider an ACS, an assisting cleaning system, like a spray bar. Let's talk about spray bar. That's, I think, a good term to use here with that, because spray bars can be a good tool in order to support the cleaning method and the cleaning performance of sanitation crews. We should not rely on spray bar systems alone to make the job, because the spray bar system should be integrated into the whole process and should be helping the sanitation crew to get the equipment clean, and not to providing bottlenecks to when it comes to efficient cleaning. So all of those aspects and much more can be specified by you. If you are a food manufacturer and you are interested in making your equipment standardized and get every time you buy a piece of equipment, get it standardized based on your requirements in order to have more cleanable design and have food safety risks mitigated. So I think that is important. So my recommendation would be for you to reach out to your belt supplier and ask if they can help you on a so-called hygienic conveyor design program. I think they should be more than happy to work with you on these kind of manual for your conveyor systems, and you can specify all these aspects that I just had mentioned here. So slowly but surely we're coming to an end of this session, and that's why I mentioned before it is a compact session this time. First of all, so every industry and application has its own dynamics, and a solid understanding is crucial, and that's why it is so important for the supplier industry to really understand the needs of the customer, have a deep dialogue on what are the requirements look like, and what are the specifics of this application. And I always recommend to spend a night or a weekend cleaning shift to see and observe how the equipment is being cleaned, and to help the food manufacturers to get raise their efficiency and effectiveness of that cleaning. And hygienic design is the foundation for food safe manufacturing, and conveyors are a critical part of the product movement, like we said, in comparison with the circulatory body system during production. I think that is a very important piece to consider when we put conveyors in. I sometimes recognize that conveyors are just being seen as a piece of equipment that really connect A to B. No, it is much more. Conveyor systems are one of the crucial integral part of food processing. And the power of an hygienic conveyor design specification can give you a lot of benefits in terms of mitigating the risk of food safety. And last but not least, a good access to all parts of the conveyor, a good access for cleaning is key. And that's why I wanted to finish my presentation with this example here. So if we go out to buy a new car today, and now I make the curve back to the car industry, we investigate, we compare, we come up with a list of must-haves and so on. And nowadays we take it for granted that a car is operating, a car is driving. So because we know that we need, that is good to know what we all need, but let's tie this back to food safety, food quality, sustainability, and productivity. So when it comes to conveyors, and I would like to give this example here with the open car, when it comes to our conveyors in the food industry, too often we depend on OEMs. So even though we are the ones that understand best our product, production process, the business, and desired outputs of that conveyor. So let's take a proactive approach altogether. You have, as a manufacturer, you have the power on making decisions to get the best solutions for operational and sanitation excellence in conveyor systems. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. And I hand back to Christina. And I am very much looking forward to answer your question if you have any. Christina, it's your stage.
Thank you very much, Roger, for this insightful presentation on hygienic design applied to the conveyor technology. Yes, we did receive a few questions from the audience. May I start with this one? How does your recommendation on a proper belt filter installation look like?
Can you repeat that question, please, Christina?
How does your recommendation on a proper belt filter installation look like? How would you recommend the proper belt filter lifter installation?
Ah, okay. Oh, all right. Thank you. That's why I was asking. I really wanted to understand the question right. I didn't hear the name lifter in between.
Lifter, sorry.
So thank you for that. That's a great question. So in general, I can answer that. The belt lifter installation should be considered in a way that you have a distance between the belt lifters of 1.2 to 1.5 meters in order to have a nice kind of opening of the belt carrieway. It is recommended to take belt lifters that are having a lifting height about 250 to 300 millimeters in order to give the sanitation crew good access to that. And I also would like to recommend that for an efficient cleaning, the belt lifters, if possible, should be designed in a way that they are removable, so that they are not making the cleaning more difficult. But once you have a kind of pack cleaning, so periodic equipment cleaning, that you're able to remove those in order to get a thorough cleaning for that. Those belt lifters can be driven manually. Each of them can be just lifted up to lift the belt carrier, or they can be combined or connected via a bar where you lift only one and the other ones get automatically lifted up again. Or what I have seen as well, a belt lifter system can be driven pneumatically, if you like. So that is helpful in order to give the sanitation crew the chance to effectively use the pneumatic system to lift it up. So from a very manual system up to a pneumatic system, everything is possible. And one last tip is some customers are using belt lifters when the belt is running. I would like to give you an alert on that. So be careful. Safety is always first. Safety of person is always first. So if you're using a roller on the belt lifter, make sure that there is a tracking of that belt with this roller, because then it can go left or right. It can mistrack. Very important to keep the people's safety in mind when it comes to that. So that's a great question, Christina.
Thanks. Thank you for answering it. So we do have a few other ones. Which belt designs are easier to clean? Open belts, like the flush grid, or closed belts, like the flat top? So which belt designs are easier to clean?
Yeah, thank you. The question is, again, a very good one. I must say that there is no black or white answer to this. Principally saying is that a flat surface is easier to clean than an open surface. But when it comes to conveyor systems, sometimes you have a flat surface, but with closer hinges, and that makes cleaning a bit more difficult compared to the open flush grid, where you have a more open area where water can flush through from the carriageway down to the returnaway. So it may help to get the belt easier clean. So I would say if you using a flat top modular belt, I would really emphasize on using this belt as a so-called hygienic version, because only hygienic versions of modular flat belts have the ability to have open hinges when they go around the sprocket, because there is a specific design in the hinges that is called cam link design, and that allows the hinges to get more open as they go around the sprocket. And this is where the cleaning person should be standing during cleaning, especially there where the belt goes around the sprocket to rinse the hinges area. And with that, I would say flush grid belts have the advantage of being open, but on the downside is that the conveyor system is maybe more polluted because of this open flush grid belt. So crumbs or salad leaves may fall more into the conveyor systems. And then it's not only the question of what is easier to clean, flat belt or flush grid, but what is easier to clean looking at the whole conveyor system. This needs to be considered when answering this question.
Indeed. So there is no black and white answer.
Indeed,
Great.
Indeed, Christina.
And going to meat processing, what would be the recommended water pressure for a spray bar belt cleaning process?
When looking at spray bar systems in the meat industry, we should not forget that they have a tough job to do. And I would, based on my experience, I would recommend to use a water pressure that is around 20 bars. With this 20 bars, you'll be able to rinse the soil of the belts when you use the CIP or spray bar steps right. So first, it always is important to have a gross debris removal of the conveyor system, either by using tools like scrapers and so on, and then have a first rinse. And that rinse then can be done by the CIP system. So I think it's 20 bars in the meat industry, and it turned out to be very effective when this 20 bar is in connection to the spray nozzles that have a spray angle of 60 degrees, about a little hole that gives the pressure, let's say water volume of about 5.1 liter per minute per nozzle. And then if you have a let's say 500 meter wide belt, and you may using, let's say 5 nozzles for that, then you have 25.5 liter per minute water consumption with an effective use at 20 bar pressure. So that's a kind of guiding rule. But if there is a higher degree of dirt, or the conveyor system has been standing for a while before they start cleaning, then these features or these numbers may vary a bit. And yeah, we are always happy to help answering more detailed question on this, but this is a very good one as well. Thank you.
Thanks for answering it. In regards to effective and efficient cleaning, are drum motors a good alternative to sprocket or shaft design?
Yeah, that is a good move into that topic. Let me say like this, there are different options to drive a belt. And sprockets are in most cases the preferred option of the belting suppliers, because the combination between the sprocket and the belt that is being driven by the sprocket is important to look at. Because if you have a an application where you have the potential for more wear, so abrasive applications, the sprocket and the belt wears in the same way. And that's why it can take years for the need to be replaced. Drum motors are an elegant solution to drive belts, especially when you have a conveyor line, I would say, where you need a streamlined design with a lower need of space. You may use drum motors. You don't have an outside flanged drive motor anymore, but it's all included in the conveyor system. So I think a good solution. The only two tips I have with the drum motors is that the first tip is the wear that I just mentioned with the sprockets is different. So the belt still wears when it's working in abrasive environment, but the motor does not wear in the same way. Because the motor normally, let's take an example of a rubber or PU lagging on the drum motor. That material is harder than the belt, and the belt wears and the drum motor not so much. So there might be some differences in the pitch of the belt and the pitch of the drum motor. So pitch is the distance from one rod to the other. And if there are some wear caused differences in the pitch, then the belt may jump on the drum motor. So it's very important to look at these aspects. So the preferred environment for using drum motors driving conveyor belts is a greasy, wet environment like in meat, poultry, seafood. Here you can have a lot of joy and enjoy drum motor usage. And the second tip is that once you have the conveyor standing still and you clean the conveyor system, please consider that half of the drum motor is covered by the belt. And then let's say the SSOPs, the cleaning instruction says that the belt may not run during cleaning because of safety. So at some point in the cleaning regime, you need to move the motor halfway in order to get access to the other half of the drum motor in order to get it cleaned. Or you have a safe way of having it returned and having maybe a spray bar using to clean it, to clean the surface of the drum motor. So I would say all these aspects are possible. And it varies from industry to industry where you can use it. But I have seen drum motors in almost all industries around, which I mentioned earlier, from bakery up to the high hygiene areas in seafood. Good question.
Great. And then a few participants are wondering which safety requirements or which hygienic standards do your equipment comply with?
The equipment manufacturers are responsible to apply with the appropriate safety requirements. So there is a machine directive that is the 1/1672, if I'm not mistaken, and I think there's a version /2 on that. So the European Machine Directive is the major aspect to consider when it comes to the safety aspects of an equipment, and the machine manufacturer is responsible to look at that. And I know that the Machine Directive gives guidance on that, and there is kind of interpretation potential possible from the OEM world that may take solutions differently, which is okay. But the major safety aspects are coming from these directives, Christina. Thank you.
Thanks. This is already supplying an answer to many participants. Then we have a question regarding the baking industry in particular. What kind of transfers are available among conveyors to minimize product damage?
Yes, very good question. And I would assume, Christina, this question is related to small products being produced, like little cookies or mini pizzas, maybe within a diameter of 30 to 40 millimeters, and so on. For these little transfers, I would recommend to look at specific solutions that the belt supplier has. So I know from my experience with Interlocks, for instance, and if I'm allowed to give that example, there is belt, and I know other belt suppliers have this as well, called mini pitch belting. And especially those series like 560 are belting solutions that give you an opportunity to have transfers. For instance, a transfer belt between the outfeed of a freezer to a following conveyor system. And there's always a large diameter of the idle and drive end. And here within you can put a kind of transfer conveyor, which may be used by Series 560, or let's call it mini pitch, because many belt suppliers have looked into it and are offering these solutions. So mini pitch belts can be running over 6 millimeter nose bar. Looking at a modular belt, this is a tremendous development, I would say, over the years. And if someone has a challenge to have product orientation issues with that, I would definitely look into those belt series called mini pitch. That gives a lot of opportunities in finding solutions to that.
Thanks. And talking about sanitation, how is steel belt compared to modular plastic or thermodrive belts?
I would assume, Christina, that this question is more related to metal belts in a grid design. Because I'm saying that because I know that steel belts from the very early end of 80s, beginning of 90s, there had been flat steel belts in the meat industry where they have cut the meat. But this question, if I'm not mistaken, is coming more from the direction of a metal belt used in spiral systems, for instance. And how is that compared to plastic or thermodrive? So if I hope I understood this question right, and yes. I can say that, okay, so I can say that the common claims of steel belt industry is that it's easier to clean than plastic. And the plastic industry has been taken the efforts to just find out, is that true or not? And the plastic industry has found out that this is not that true, and they have made some testings with different products. So you have products with characteristics of sticking on metal belting less than on plastic. Or on the other way around, you may have product sticking or product characteristics that sticks more on plastic than on metal. It really depends, but the overall claim that the metal grit belt is easier to clean because of the more open area is not really true in my experience. I experienced a testing to compare both systems, and it's really hard to say that one or that one. It is really very much depending on the product and the appropriate handling of the product, and a lot more. I would love to be more concrete here, but I cannot, Christina, because it's so much aspects come into consideration. But the bottom line is getting the homogeneous belting into this discussion. The homogeneous belting is, in my eyes, currently the most cleanable belt solution, because the homogeneous belts, or how we call it, blue belts, also running with zero tension. And every system that runs within zero tension is a preferred system, because you can have an easy access to the conveyors, you can have an easy lift of the belting, and all of these belt aspects and insights can be also, by the way, looked at the conveyor guideline of EHEDG. It is the Conveyor Guideline number 43. EHEDG has shaped that team years ago, and I had the pleasure to be part of that team when we worked out these Conveyor Guidelines. So everyone who is member of EHEDG, I really re-emphasize to download the guidelines to get more insights on each of the belting principles. And if you're not member of EHEDG, I would just recommend you to sign up and make benefits of all these documents and guidelines that are available. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks. If we consider flat belt steam cleaners, does the steam have any impact in the life of belts?
The steam cleaning on flat belts, right? Is that how I understand it, right?
Flat belt steam cleaners are compatible for long life, for belts long life.
Yeah, there is a relative term into it. Long life. What means long? Long can be 1 week, but long can be also 6 years, depending on the application. So what I can add to this is that when steam, dry steam or saturated steam is being used to remove soil from belts, it stresses the belt. Either if it's a flat belt or modular or homogeneous or metal, that aspect stresses the belt. It is just depending on the doses, the concentration of that stress. It's the same discussion with ultraviolet lighting, UV lighting, or any other physical or chemical stress that comes onto the belt. All of these stresses, like temperature changes from freezing minus to hot plus temperatures, may give some impact on the aging of the belt. And the more stress you get to the belt, the more you're short of the belt life. But I would not be that angstful for that, because it's like you're driving a car and you drive the car through the desert or through the strong rain or through Sweden where it's freezing cold. It may have an impact on the condition of the car, but it doesn't really reduces the car life from, I don't know, 10 to 1 year. So there's not a significant change to belting when you put that in. I think the cleaning industry has found good, decent systems to have these steam cleaning systems, for instance, to be used on belting. So I would not be in doubt with that. Just to be careful and have a good look at the application, not to stress the belt too much with that.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you.
We have a question about hinge designs. So according to a very recent standard from 2021, the use of hinges in the product contact area should be avoided if possible. And are there any alternatives to hinge designs in the typical application scenarios of hinge designs?
Yeah, I would love to answer this question with yes, there is, but there is not only the development of the belting industry, which covers the homogeneous belting, so that the positive driven belts that have the features of have taken the drive features of a modular belt and the hygienic features of a flat belt into it combined, which is, I think, the best system in direct food contact, because then you have no hinges anymore. But I understand the modular belting solutions are so valuable to the industry that you sometimes can't avoid to have hinges in the conveyor systems using modular belting. And therefore, I would like to re-emphasize on the information from earlier in the presentation that you should look at hygienically designed hinges that open up as the belt goes around the sprocket, and even more important, to train the people for them to know that there is a modular belt with flat top surface and hinges, so that they clean in an effective way the top surface and the inside of the belt, maybe using tools that not has been used before. It can be brushes, it can be specific nozzles in the spray bar lands, for instance, turning nozzles or rotating spray bars. That is an option to really better clean the hinges. But but I understand that the advantages of having a modular in reliability, in stiffness, in belt pull, and so on, also sometimes overweight the hygiene of that belt, and then the hygiene comes in. So you always have to find a good compromise to find the best belt solution for that application.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And yeah, thanks very much, Roger, for sharing your knowledge, your experience with us today. We're very conscious and also very respectful of everybody's time. So I guess it's back to you, Rob.
Roger Scheffler, food safety expert at EHEDG company member, commercial food sanitation. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise here in this EHEDG Connects webinar with us and for answering the questions posed. And dear attendees, thank you for your attention. And if your question has not been answered yet, don't worry about that, because the EHEDG main office will follow up on all the questions that are posed today. And Mr. Scheffler has promised to answer your questions via email, and you will receive your answer via the email address that you provided during the registration process. Thank you all for your interest and hope to see you in the next EHEDG Connects online webinar. Oh, and if you have an extra minute for us, please complete the survey at the end of this webinar so we can learn how to improve things for the next one. And we hope to see you there as well, of course. And if you really like it, we would also very much appreciate if you could just leave your comments in the LinkedIn post, the interview with Mr. Scheffler that you can find on LinkedIn. Just type in EHEDG and you will find it. Thank you again and see you next time. Bye-bye.